Hi everyone, before you dive into the episode, I just wanted to interrupt really quickly. You're gonna dive into this episode and you're gonna hear me call this podcast the Holistic Hustle Podcast. And that is because it used to be the old name of this podcast. And it was an amazing ride. I'm so grateful for the Holistic Hustle Podcast and what it served. But recently I've decided to rebrand the podcast based off the evolution of my own journey, my own story, and where God is calling me to go next. And so now the rebrand, which you may know already, is called Wisdom is Wealth. Didn't want you to be confused, so dive into this episode. They were an amazing episode, amazing guests, amazing insights, and enjoy. Let's invest in the human being behind the business and heal and grow him, right? So we can be more authentic, more aligned in just doing things in business and in life in totality that are just bringing me closer to God. Hi, I'm Justin Buonamo, and this is Holistic Hustle. Holistic Hustle is doing things for the right reasons, working hard for the right reasons. The healthy balance of what work and progression and accomplishment and success should actually look like. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Holistic Hustle Podcast with Justin Buonamo. I'm pumped to have you all back. I'm super excited for this episode. We're gonna be talking about what it means to me that at JFF, the company that I own, we have recently just crossed, in the past couple of days, $1 million for the year of 2023, which is super exciting news. And so for those of you that don't know, I own a company by the name of Journey to Financial Freedom, or you'll often hear us call it JFF. And we've been in business for about 3.5 years now. I am the owner and the CEO of the company. I wear a couple other hats. Some I'll be keeping, some I'll be handing off. But we'll talk a little bit about that later today, about what is next for me and for business. But as of right now, it is November 15th. I had to think about the day for a second. November 15th, and as of a couple of days ago, we have officially crossed the $1 million mark for revenue for the year of 2023, which is just so super awesome for many reasons, and something that, I'm very proud of. The team and I have worked extremely hard this past year in particular to not just achieve that, but to set this company up for the future. And something that comes up to me that's authentic, right, when I'm thinking about this topic, is this podcast is called Holistic Hustle for a reason, right? We want to work hard for the right reasons, for reasons that bring us closer to God, not further away. I try not to embody that I'm gonna succeed by any means energy, right? I'll stay up for 2 weeks at a time and I'll sleep when I'm dead just for the means of succeeding or accomplishing a goal, right? And to each their own, and sometimes that is appropriate based on seasons of people's development and or life, right? But basically what I'm trying to say is, I'm really proud of myself for this $1 million this year because it was done in a much healthier manner, right? I still work very hard, trust me. I've had those days where, I work from sun up to sundown if it's appropriate and needed, right? If it makes most sense. And, what the other hard work that I've done this year, I think, is really just around, healing myself. Growing up or maturing is kind of, another way to say it, but kind of graduating from that first half of life and going into that second half of life, right? And that has been extremely hard work because a lot of times people don't have business problems, they have personal problems leaking into the business, either holding them back from accomplishing their goals or limiting the growth that they are capable of having despite already having some really good success, right? That's the one that gets a lot of people well, I've created success with the way that I do things, right? And it becomes harder to convince them or convince ourselves that this past 30 some odd years and all the success that I've had, in a way I kind of did it wrong, right? Or there's a better way to do it, right? And so it becomes difficult for us to accept the better way since the results are already there, have been proven, to accomplish them in the fashion that we always have, to then say, hey, there might be a more improved way out there, right? And so that was really hard work to accept that over this past year, right? And grow into a new way of doing things, a way of doing things that I truthfully feel are bringing me closer to God and not further away, right? And so like our actions, right, are fueled by underlying motives, right? And those underlying motives are either bringing us further away from God or closer to God, right? And so I think this past year, nowhere near perfect, still light years to grow up and mature, but this past year definitely have recognized myself growing into what I just spoke about, but most importantly, trying to just do things with motives that bring me closer to God. And that creates this feeling of authenticity. It creates this feeling of alignment, right? Which makes things easier. And so going on my next point, like this is actually back-to-back years for us, which is so super awesome to say. And we'll get into, some of the growth that happened this year, particularly behind the scenes business-wise, not just personally. But this being back-to-back years for us is incredible. For one, I'm very proud of it. It shows the first million wasn't a fluke. It's definitely not a fluke when you do back-to-back ones. And that authenticity, that solidification, right, of wow, everything that I have done over these past years has been worth it and will continue to be worth it. But point being, why I brought this up from my point before was when you start doing things for reasons that bring you closer to God, right, it starts to feel a little bit easier because it's in alignment. Like you don't feel icky about doing something. It like actually feels energizing and exciting and clear, right? And so that million that we did in 2022, though I'm so proud of it, it was unbelievable. The team did an incredible job. We love all the clients involved. It was a lot harder, right, than this second one. And yeah, you could say because now I have the experience doing it, 1000% definitely plays a part in it. Right, but I think the key was this past year, like I just kept telling myself, I have nothing to prove, nothing to posture, nothing to protect, but I still have goals and want to change this world through the visions that I have, right? And so that was so helpful this past year, right? And I think the biggest thing to kind of wrap this up is really what I'm saying is the business will never outgrow its leader, right? And this past year, I was like, what is the highest lever point or the leverage point, lever, whatever terminology you want to use. What is the highest lever that I can pull to get the biggest bang for my buck? Or another way to say it, I always ask myself, of all of the problems and goals that are going on and occurring right now, right, or happening or being talked about, right, is there one problem that I can solve that will just solve the rest of them? So if there's 10 problems right now, is there one in those 10 problems? And if I solve that one, it would solve the majority, if not the rest of them, right? And so thinking that way, I'm like, what is the biggest bang for my buck in 2023? And I was like, let's invest in the human being behind the business and heal and grow him, right? So we can be more authentic, more aligned, and just doing things in business and in life in totality that are just bringing me closer to God. And that is me not sitting here preaching, saying that I'm doing things perfect and great and I'm just this amazing Christian. It's not it at all. Actually, you get it right by first doing it wrong. And so this year was a lot of me doing things wrong, right? Going out and being willing to fail, if you will. Like going out and being like, wow, a lot of the things that I do each day are not bringing me closer to God. And having to face those and talk through those and work through those. And so, when I say I did those things over these past years, it's not like, oh, I'm so great, or oh, I'm so above, or man, even like from last year, man, that guy was an idiot talking about my past self, right? None of that really. It's, really the essence of the business not outgrowing the leader means that you got to go through transformation, and going through transformation is really tough, especially the deconstruction phase, right? Like, I have to literally, the past 30-ish years that I've been alive, kind of deconstruct everything that I built that false self or my ego on, all right, to then reconstruct the right way. And so, all in all, those are just some things that I learned over this past year in regards to making that second $1 million, with us still having, about a month and a half left to go, and just things that we're really proud of. And so, those are the things that I learned. Those are the keys, maybe some pearls along the way. But what makes you really proud is, first off, my team. I have an incredible group of executives between Stephanie, Morgan, and Brittany. And Morgan was over here the other day because he lives locally. He's been on a couple of these with me. And we were talking about this past year. And for those of you that don't know, like this past year for us was actually a growth year. When we got back from the live event in October 2022, right, going into November 2022, I kind of just had this epiphany where I was like, okay, we need to do some things and make some changes in this business if we want to be legitimate, if we want to be around for forever, if we want to shift from what we call a garage band business, right, to a world-class business. And my biggest goal this past year for the business was to solidify JFF to be around for forever if we choose to. My wife and I were driving around the other day and I was like, we're about to be around for forever, right? We really are. And a lot of that has to do with the work that we did over this past year. And so in November 2022, when I made those decisions, the biggest bang for our buck was to build a legitimate marketing department, a legitimate marketing strategy, right? And Morgan Madden had worked for us in the past in many capacities, but came back on full time in November 2022 and revamped and designed not just an incredible marketing plan, but a beautiful department. This man is running his department like a true executive, being a great leader, and they just have it all figured out now. Well, not all figured out. Yeah, that's so foolish for me to say. If anybody knows marketing, it's just a 9-letter word for test. But we are light years ahead of where we were a year ago when it came to marketing. Right? And my reason for bringing that up is that's just one example of 3 amazing executives, the other 2 being Stephanie and Brittany, right, that just crushed their jobs this year. And when Morgan was here the other day, we were like, how in a growth year, like in a year we thought we were going to do worse maybe than the year before because of all the growth and the things that we were doing and investing in, how in that year did we still cross $1 million? And my answer that came to my mind was a bunch of executives just crushing their fucking jobs, right? And just a bunch of incredible leaders this company has, and the rest of our employees are beautiful human beings too as well, but that shit starts at the top. And that's one thing I really learned over these past years, like the difference between management and leadership, right? Both are very important, but 2 completely different skill sets. And I'm just so proud of the team and everybody that believed in the vision, and particularly even the sales team, where this past year I made some changes where we used to have some systems that worked for marketing and sales. I kind of call it pop-up shop marketing, right? Like, oh, what are we going to market this month, right? What should I sell this month? Or what offer should we put out there this month, right? And then make a bunch of sales and then figure out how to do it again the next month. But as you can imagine, that shit's exhausting and it's also not sustainable. And so this past year, like, we kind of shut down sales for a little bit, whether it was direct or indirect, right? But to be able to do the things that we wanted to do, which was build machines that will provide us the exact amount of leads and the exact amount of sales each month for the business for the rest of eternity or however long we decide to be around, right? And in the process of building those machines, it's not an overnight process, right? It takes a lot of resources, time, money, and energy. Right? And so any time, money, and energy spent elsewhere would have delayed the building of these machines, right? To kind of get us to the reality and the outcome that we're living in now. But during the process, it was really tough because a lot of that meant like, hey, we got to stop making sales the way that we've always made sales, right? Because that's going to take time, money, and energy or resources away from us building these machines to make quality sales, better sales, right? For the rest of eternity, but it takes that short-term sacrifice for this year. Right, and so the team beyond bought in, they beyond understood the vision and the mission, and they just played their part. They played their part, and I'm just so proud because that all happened in a year that we still did $1 million, right? Like this was what we call a bow and arrow effect. Sometimes you have to pull yourself back to shoot yourself forward, right? And so that pullback period kind of is that growth period where like this year we had to pull ourselves back. We had to stop doing pop-up shop marketing. We had to stop taking sales for a little bit so we could put our resources to building the machine, right? And so that was a pullback year for us in many regards, and we still crossed $1 million, which was amazing to us. And so we're all just so super proud about that. And yeah, I love this space to sit here and reflect because it happened a couple of days ago, and Haven't had really a chance to sit down and reflect, right? But all in all, money is not the source of eternal happiness. So this million was a little bit different than the last one because I accomplished this one and just knew the objective of it, was clear on the expectations of it, which is an amplifier of happiness, not a source of happiness. Last year when we crossed 1 million, I was like, damn, I feel almost the exact same in a way. Yeah, I'm proud, right? And I thought that was a problem, right? But instead it's the expectation, because why did I feel the exact same 20 minutes after I found out, 20 minutes after I celebrated with my family that I was around? Right? It was because money is an amplifier of happiness, not a source of happiness. So it amplified it, right, for 20 minutes, right? It amplified my happiness to accomplish my goals, right? But ultimately realizing that unless you do the work internally, right, your external wealth, no matter how large that number is, will never exceed your internal wealth. And so to make the best of those amplifiers of happiness outside of aligning expectations and understanding the objectives of them is just to grow and transform into a human being who can make the best of those materialistic things, of those blessings and opportunities here on earth, right? And so that's one of the biggest things I learned over this past year, and I hope that some of these golden nuggets were helpful. And so before we wrap up, we'll talk about what is next, right? So what's next on the horizon? Keep it on the revenue train, the income train, right? We are now set up, because of the work and the growth that we did this past year, right? We're set up to do about 3 to 4 million in 2024, which we're super excited about and very proud of too as well. And that's not just a projection out of nowhere. Those are as accurate a projections as we can get based off of what we spent this past year building, right? The machines we have put together, right, to be able to lead to such awesome outcomes. And so that's really exciting for the year to come. And another big thing, I believe it was my last podcast episode, you guys had the pleasure of hearing from Brittany Browner, who is our executive coach at JFF, but I can't remember if we announced it or spoke about it, but she is now the president of this company in training. So we started training about 6 weeks ago, and she'll fully take over as the president of the company in March 2024. And so just a little clarity here, right? The CEO and the president of a company are two different positions. People often just don't know that, or a lot of people and a lot of companies just have that person, the same person, wear both hats, right? And so you often hear, I'm the CEO and the president of this company, right? They're two different things, right? The president is responsible for day-to-day internal operations and culture between the team and the clients, right? And the CEO is like the visionary of the company, like thinking and teaching, right? And making connections and partnerships. And so I'll remain the CEO of the company, which will be one of the titles that I really grow into over this next year or so as Brittany takes over as the president. And one thing that I'm learning about that CEO title, and so one thing I am learning about that CEO title, being the visionary of the company, right? Is my vision is only as good as I can communicate it, right? Because it's all fine and dandy if I have the vision in my head, but if the 14 people working for me and the couple of hundred clients that we have at JFF don't understand that vision because I can't correctly communicate it, that's on me, right? And so that's my responsibility. And so growing into that, is something that I'm doing in this next chapter. Coupled with two other big titles. And so I know a lot of y'all know, but I will officially have the title of dad, more specifically girl dad, come March 2024, which works out perfectly with Brittany taking over with the president, which is about 80% of my duties. And so between that and I've decided to step down this spring coaching lacrosse, so I can be around, I can be a parent, I can be a supportive significant other and spouse and a good partner, right? And so that's what I'm really excited about in this next chapter in my life, being a dad, being a quality husband, right? And stepping into this CEO role fully as Brittany takes over on the president side of things. And so, what an episode. I was a little nervous because sometimes when you talk money or sometimes when you talk accomplishments, especially someone like me who has had, in full transparency, an arrogant past, right? It can come off the wrong way. But I hope it came off the right way today. I hope it gave you permission to have goals right? Go chase money and peace at the same time, because I promise you can do them both in parallel, right? But that's just as long as you understand the expectations and the objective, right, around things, the difference between amplifiers and source of happiness, right? And to just continuously heal and transform yourself as a human being, right? And so I hope this Holistic Hustle podcast episode holistically helped today. Right? A bunch of topics and nuggets built into one episode, but I love y'all. Hope this was helpful, and we'll see you on the next episode.